Thank you for joining us. You have a bunch of stuff going on musically. We'll get into your album in a minute, your upcoming album, but know this, the track you did with Miley is out now. And
Yeah.
so first of all, what's the song about? Let's start there. What is it about?
Well, I guess I mean I went back and did I guess like the lyrics and story, if you could call it that, later. But it was I feel like I wrote it about I grew up in Franklin, Tennessee, and then moved to LA, and then moved back to Franklin, Tennessee, and so it's just kind of about like not not being super comfortable or happy anywhere until you decide to be.
Do you feel like, given your upbringing, that do you feel like because you have moved around, was it hard to like find a place that you called home? Did you ever feel like you were truly home?
Well, everywhere was my home until it wasn't. So it was LA was great whenever I lived there. Honestly, I I loved living there, and I feel like if it wasn't for just the I like once I got out of college and it was like, okay, I'm living my own life on my own. It was just unsustainable being in LA, and so and then that started making living there much less doable, and that takes a toll on your happiness. And so I came back home, bought a house, and it's been great. And then you go back to LA and you're like, man, I kind of miss it here. But then you're in LA and you're like, I kind of miss being home. So it's I feel like you could move or live anywhere and you'll start to get restless a little bit. So especially for me.
Let's take it back to the beginning a little bit. When did your kind of passion for music um, begin?
That honestly didn't start until I moved back to Nashville in like 2015. So, um, I'll Never Leave You, the first song I ever put out, that was the first song I ever wrote. And so I just kind of moved back to Nashville, met some people, and then kind of just started working on it. I made friends with a lot of artists and musicians, and I just kind of started, you know, hanging out with them, watching what they were doing, and then I was kind of like, oh, okay, we'll see if I could make this work. And then I wrote I'll Never Leave You, and then put that out, and then ended up going on Jimmy Fallon with that, and it was just kind of off to the races from there because I was not really planning on doing music stuff. I was working in like film and photography, so it wasn't really my plan to really make music a career.
Yeah, let's go into that. What you started really getting the music after high school, which is later than what a lot of people do, and you
Yeah.
obviously had this musical family with these multi generational famous musicians. Um, so, was it growing up? Did you feel like did people put a guitar? Did your dad put a guitar in your hand? It didn't feel right. Like did they I guess did your parents kind of let you find music on your own? That's I think that's what people are curious about coming from a family like the Cyrus family is how much
Yeah.
music was just sort of there. I think people just have this vision of like a circle like the Carter family of
Yeah.
everyone sitting around
Yeah.
playing, but what was it actually like?
Not really. Like, my brother, who also ended up doing music too, he was like, a semi-pro skateboarder before that. We lived in Toronto, and even like when we went to LA, he was like, getting sponsorships for skateboarding. He was, selling videos online of him skateboarding and stuff like that. And then, um, and then I went to an arts high school in LA, and mainly focused on film and photography. So and then just kind of like my parents with all of us were always just kind of like, do whatever you want and we'll support it. Not I would sit around and play guitar with my dad sometimes, but not really, ever more than, just for fun. And even then it was just like probably the only songs I really knew how to play whenever I moved back to Nashville a couple or I guess 10 years ago now, was my dad's, because I didn't really play for fun on my own. I would just really play with him. So, yeah, no, it wasn't, it was really laid back. And, I did fairly well in school, and I thought I could, maybe at one point I wanted to be a teacher and maybe a professor at a college or something. And then, I started doing film and photography and started working in that. And so pretty much whatever I wanted to do, my parents were down with it.
That's
I
cool.
always find it so fascinating, like country music and like when you say Nashville and just on that topic, because I was someone who was always so kind of along the lines of like I grew up in the city, so I didn't really understand that kind of like that country like thing, right? And then
Yeah.
I spent a few months like in like a country setting. Like I was very not into country music. I
Yeah.
literally listened to like Casey Musgraves for like like the same album every day for like a whole month after spending
Yeah.
some time in the country. So, what was it like kind of being in the Nashville like atmosphere? Was there a country like scene? What was going on down there?
Well, there's been a country scene in Nashville for, I guess, the better part of 100, going on 100 years now. But the the circles I run in are not, you know, really country music. It's more like, singer songwriter, a lot of, indie bands. Like, I mean, like, some people I know lean more in the country side of things, but it's not, there's like the mainstream country kind of Nashville, and then there's sort of just like, you know we're here because of all the music stuff that's here kind of stuff. And, I know people who do pop music, indie, music, kind of like I do, and then everything in between there. So, like, it's a little bit separate. Like, I feel like there's kind of, two industries going on, but you can't really get away from it, because, there's, not that you necessarily want to, but the like, Music Row is all decked out in country stuff. You go downtown and there's, country music and country bands playing everywhere. So it's definitely cool to be around. You feel like you are in, the epicenter of where music is being made, even if it's one particular kind of music.
What do you love most about country music?
I'm not a huge country music fan, but I mean, I guess, um, hmm, especially older country music, I guess, like the storytelling aspect of it.
So the song, it's a big deal because this is the first song. Is this the first song that two Cyruses have been on together like this?
No, I think Noah and Miley did a song a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so but this is the first time you've worked with one of your
Yeah.
sisters.
Yeah.
So what
Other
was
than writing, I've written some songs for Noah before, but not anything we've ever put
the
out.
collaboration thing? So
Yeah.
what? Tell us the story about how this was made. Was this a song you already had? You took it to Miley. Was
Yeah.
this Miley's song? So tell us the story about the putting this song together?
I wish it was a better story, but honestly, it was just the song got done, and then, we were trying to think about who would, feature on it. And as we started naming the qualities, it like narrowed in on one person, and that was Ashley McBride. But she said, no, no, I'm just kidding. We got to Miley, and we were like, I'll just text her. And I sent her the song, and then she was like, oh, I'll get around to it. Maybe within like 2 hours, I had all the files back. She has a little vocal, booth
That is so
in her backyard, and so she went and did that, and then it was, done within a handful of hours. It was a lot of fun.
So you sent Miley the track, and she went out into her
Yeah.
vocal booth and laid down the vocals in 2 hours and sent them back.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was very fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
because, she lives in L.A. I live in Nashville, so it was a spur of the moment kind of thing. And, I sent it to her. I wasn't even really making this a collection of songs for like an album at that point yet. I really was just kind of doing it for fun. So
Yeah, let's talk about what this is leading to. You have an album coming up. It's your first one since 21, I think. Your first full
yeah.
length album is 21.
Yeah.
So, what's the process of this one been like? Was it all were all these songs kind of put together, or made together as a group, or were they collected over
Mhm.
several years? Tell us about the kind of the collection of these songs.
So it just kind of started for me as I was renting a friend of mine's studio who moved. He was in the process of selling his house, and so I was like, until you sell it, I'll just rent your studio. And so, I was doing producing projects out of there. I was doing songwriting stuff out of there for other artists, and then, um, I started. Um, it's kind of weird because right around whenever I was right whenever I started renting that studio, I had just written and had been released a song that I wrote for Orville Peck, and so I was actually writing one song in particular. It's a song I put out earlier this year called "From Now On," and I originally intended it for Orville Peck, as another song for him to cut of mine. And so I never even sent it to him because I ended up liking it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like maybe it'd be fun to put an album out. Maybe I'm just gonna kind of accumulate songs, pretending like I'm gonna put another album out. And so one, two, three, four, eventually grew into I think it's 11 songs now, but yeah, it just kind of started with like me taking songs that I originally intended to give to somebody else, and then just ended up keeping them.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So, do you enjoy writing songs? Like, if you write a song and it becomes a hit for someone else, do you get as much satisfaction with that as if it was your own song?
Probably a lot more because at that point they have to go do all the work. My part's done. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you write a song? Like, where does it begin?
Usually like a voice memo, and I will send people voice memos of me not even playing guitar, like just singing. I'll literally just like be in my car, hit record, and then send it to two collaborators that I've worked with really often are Ben Kramer, also known as Old Sea Brigade, and Jordan Lindley, and I'll just send it to them. And then if they respond and say, "Do you want to work on this later?" I'll think this is worth, or they'll ignore it or respond with something that makes me know that it's not worth chasing. So that's how Know This happened too. Was um, I knew I wanted one more song for the album, and so I had two voice memos, and I let Jordan Lindley pick which one we worked on. And so, Know This very easily could have been not exist and been a completely different song on the record, and I never would have written it. So,
Wow.
uh, yeah, so Jordan picked that song out of a lineup of two, and so and the other one I never finished or ever worked on ever again. So.
Do
So
you
yeah,
do you
that's
pick
that's
songs up years later? Are you one of those people? Maybe you'll pick this up 2 years from now.
really. I honestly, I think my first record that came out in 2021, it was a lot of songs that I had written like 2 or 3 years prior, and then once the record came out, I was kind of like, it was a weird time anyway. It was 2021, and so I was like, I just felt like I didn't really have like a grip on the songs anymore. I had this mentality of, um, oh, I need to put out all these other songs I've written before I put out new stuff. And it, sounds like it makes sense, but from my point of view, they were songs that had already kind of come and gone in my life. And so even though I'm very proud of the way that record turned out and the people who worked on it, did an amazing job, but it was just it, for me, it's like a song kind of has like, to me, about a year and a half window of being relevant in my life. And so once that has kind of gone, even if it's a great song, I don't really have the passion for it anymore. And so I think, it could be definitely different for other people, but I feel like if I write a song, I've probably got about a year and a half to do something with it, or I sort of put it away for good.
Okay, that's interesting. Does that sound like something you would do, Demi? Is that kind of like because Demi's in a band and she writes songs. You have something similar to that, Demi?
It's definitely weird to like, even if the music, if the music is like thumping and you're like, oh, this is cool, but it's about like someone you're not with anymore. It's just kind of like, nah, I can't. Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I can't. Like, what are we doing?
Um, I can definitely write songs about people, or, people who aren't in my life anymore. Like one of the songs on the record is about a friend of mine from who I probably haven't spoken to in about 10 years. But it's a, so it's more so like the period of time I write it in. If it's, you know, it's more about like the period that it's written in for me rather than the subject, I guess.
Wait, I want to go back to Halloween really quick. What are you going to be
Yeah.
for Halloween?
The family from The Shining.
The family from The Shining. Is that like, are you foreshadowing everyone's costume right now?
Wait, what? Me?
Because it's like,
That's me and my family's costume. Yeah, is the family from Shining.
oh, you got the,
Yeah.
okay, cool. But
Yeah.
I'm even more excited for is Christmas. I'm definitely more of a Christmas.
Christmas.
What is it like? Just kind of like, how do you celebrate your Christmas? What is it like Christmas at the Cyrus house?
I haven't been to a proper Cyrus family Christmas in a while, because now I usually spend Christmas with like my in-laws,
Yeah.
and I have my wife and my son. And so it used to be, I mean, it's loud
Hmm.
that I'm one of five of kids. And then, you know, it's just loud. Everybody has,
And it's not a quiet
you know,
family. It's not a family full
no,
of
and fun arguing. There's like fun arguing about like the dumbest thing you could possibly think of. And so it's a lot of very loud, very, but also very fun, and it's a good time. And so I haven't done it in a minute, because they usually do it in LA, and I can't leave, Nashville in the winter to go to LA. That would just bum me out.
yeah, yeah. Um, you growing up, you had you watched Miley do all the Disney Channel stuff and Hannah Montana and stuff, and you've done some acting yourself. How much does that interest you still, like being on camera, acting, hosting, doing those sorts of things? Do you still
I'd love
enjoy?
to
Yeah,
host. I'd love to host a show. 90 Day Fiance is me and my wife's favorite show, and they do like a tell all for that show. And I would love to be the host, just mainly to take in how crazy everyone is on that show. But acting, I really only did one thing, and it was a movie directed by a friend of mine. And so I always have, even with music to some extent, I usually like being behind whatever's happening and doing like the inside
sure.
kind of work for it.
Did you ever visit the set when Miley was doing the show and be like, I want to be the person doing the camera. I want to be the one directing. Did that influence you at all?
I mean, I was a skateboarder kid too, and I played basketball. And so like
That's
whenever
cool.
we very
That's
first
cool.
moved to LA, I was so invested in rebuilding my social life after moving from Nashville to LA. And so I didn't spend a ton of time there, but I did visit, and it was extremely cool. But no, that never really
Even
I
I
never
was
really
talking about
played a
like
huge part
behind
of
the
it.
camera stuff, like seeing the
Yeah,
cameras and the act and the
yeah.
director and
I
stuff.
I don't think I got really interested in film and photography until I went to high school, or I switched to a different high school, and they had like a music department, a theater department, a film photography kind of department. And that was when uh, I like went and toured the school, and I was like, I saw the cool uh, film stuff, and was like, I kind of just want to toy around with all that stuff.
Oh
And then
yeah.
got into the film department, and that was kind of when I got into it, and then mainly got into like the photography side of it.
It's so interesting when we've had Julian Lennon on the show. Obviously, his dad was musician,
Hmm.
and for some reason, he kind of took more to the visual aspect. So he's like does he has photography, kind of like art shows and things like that. I always find that interesting when like the offspring of a musician gets into something artistic more visually. So when was that kind of first moment for you that you took that first photo and you were like, "Oh, this is cool. This is kind of my thing."
Um, Man, I don't really remember. I just remember going to school and seeing not even really like the cameras and stuff, but like watching the kids edit their movies and stuff.
Mm.
Like that was kind of it for me. Was like whenever I saw you know three or four dudes around one computer, sort of editing their movies and
Like
like
skateboard
you know.
videos?
Sorry, what?
Skateboard videos?
Not that would have been cool, but it was mainly like they're like short films and stuff, and so I think that was kind of what grabbed my attention about it was more like the editing process and like seeing all the cool like all the cool like equipment that the school had to work with. So that was kind of more than really anything. Because actually, I'll be honest, I don't think I was ever really like a great photographer. So I think like that's probably what made me go. I probably looked at my camera at one point and thought I should probably get into music. But I was, mainly what got me into it, especially on like the film side, was like more so the editing and all that.
Now that you're really focusing on music, but you have this background in film and photography, how much does that affect your visuals? Does you find like it's helpful to create like cover art and things like that, music videos, or do you have someone else who kind of like directs that for you?
Yes and no, but mainly in the way that whenever I hire or reach out to somebody to like do the visual art for me, it makes me not want to interfere or
Wow.
give my input at all. It makes me want to just be like, you do whatever you're going to do because nobody tells me what to do. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. And so, so I usually just reach out, like there's an artist that I'm working with for my next single coming out. Or I guess I probably shouldn't say the day, but the next single coming out soon, where we have, I just reached out to an artist that I'm a huge fan of and was just like, and they were like, "Oh, what do you really want?" And I was like, "I don't really care. I reach out because your stuff is cool, and I want you just to do what you do. And so I'm not going to like really give you my input or my direction for it because nobody does that for me. So it's unfair for me to give you when you're good at what you do. I don't want to give my opinion on what you should do because I'm not good at what you do. And just like how other people don't give me input on what I'm doing because I know what I'm doing. So I think that like probably I got and I think I probably absorbed some of that whenever I was in school for like art and photography. It was I had a much more respect for an artist's ability to do stuff on their own without my input.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you ever have like I always find sometimes that people have like artists have kind of mentors in their careers or maybe not even for their career, just kind of someone that they can go to for like life advice and just like who's that person growing up that you feel like you could always call?
Actually, the director that I mentioned earlier, who the only acting experience I have, he's a director named Ryan Batiglieri, and he was I would say like the closest thing I had to a mentor, other than like my family and my friends, but like as for like a person who I'm not related to or like really like close friends with, like he was almost, I always say Ryan was like a brother slash father slash friend slash teacher, and he was probably had a, I would say, in on the creative and even just learning in some ways how to like grow up. Even
Mm.
he gave me a lot of very valuable lessons for art, and because he was a director and didn't make music, but like gave me very valuable insights on art and like friends and growing up and doing all that stuff. So Ryan Batiglieri, I would say, is probably the closest I've ever had to like a proper mentor.
It's so funny you say growing up because I was on the phone with my friend the other day and she was like, I feel like I finally grew up. And I was like, oh my God, are we growing up?
Mm.
What was that moment for you where you were like, oh my God, I'm a grown up? I feel like a lot of 20 something year olds are experiencing this kind of like world shift and things like that.
I don't. I think like having a kid is one, getting married is one, but I also think just like leaving your parents' house, or actually, here's the best answer I could give is when you get a car. When you get a car and you are still not smart or responsible enough to be driving a car, but you have one and you're allowed to drive it for some reason, I feel like that's the moment where you are grown up and you're an adult and you've kind of got to actually make choices for yourself, because when you're behind the wheel of the car, you're the only person who can.
Absolutely.
When I first got my driver's license, my dad made me go to the we were making dinner and he sent me to the store to get salad dressing, and I thought it was so cool. My first trip going to the store in a car by myself to get salad dressing was just it felt I feel like an adult, you know.
What was your first car?
My first car was my sister Brandy, my oldest sister. She uh, was getting rid of her Scion, the XB, the super square toaster looking car,
Sweet.
and that was my car. It was a 2004 Scion, and I miss it every single day. I love that car.
People used to trick those out with like the neon lights underneath them and stuff. Did you do that with that?
Yeah. No, it was so filthy and disgusting, and probably I probably put 100,000 miles on it and never changed the oil. So the fact that it didn't explode was probably a good thing, but it was, I'll always remember. I see them on the street sometimes and I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
Because they definitely haven't made that car in about 20 years, but I always see it and get very nostalgic for it.
Wow. Now, we haven't talked too much about your family lineage in terms of their success. This is about you. But the one thing I want to ask about is when I think of your dad, there's two iconic things. Besides the mullet, there's the sneakers from the achy breaky days. He wore high tops with the jeans instead of boots. And then I think of the hat he wore in the Old Town Road video as sort of iconic costume Billy Ray Cyrus things. Are either of those items on display anywhere within the Cyrus estate, like the main Cyrus estate?
Man, don't quote me on this, but I think he gave those high tops to. I'm sure he had more than one, but like the OG like achy breaky high tops. I'm pretty sure he gave those to either a charity or a museum. It's one of the two.
That's what
I
I was
don't remember.
asking. Is it in like the
Yeah,
Country Music Hall of Fame or something like the high
I
tops or something? Yeah.
maybe not that prestigious, but it's somewhere. I can't remember if it was like a charity thing or a museum, but he did that sort of probably in like the last 5 or 10 years. But before that, they were just in his closet.
Yeah, this where it started was why I asked Adam Duritz of Counting Crows where the fringe jacket from the Mr. Jones video ended up, and he had said the same thing. It was in his closet, and so I think it's interesting these iconic, things sometimes end up that place. So yeah, um,
Yeah, it's a shame they definitely would not fit me is the problem. So it would I've got about 5 or 6 inches in height on my dad, so I those shoes would be way too small for me.
wow, I didn't know you had that much of a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got
So he's gotten shorter. He used to be a lot taller, but he's gotten shorter over the years. But yeah, I think probably anybody. Me and my brother are both pretty tall, so I don't think anybody could have. I don't think he could have figuratively passed the torch on those shoes to anyone. So a museum or a or charity auction thing was probably the right move for that.
So, Braison, are you going to tour on this album once you release it?
We have plans for that, and then I'm playing the Ryman October 15th with Noah, and then heading on a little short run with her through
That's right.
the South. So yeah,
Excited for
that's
that.
October 15th through the 23rd. So
What are you guys going to be like on tour? Like little rascals running around, or is it going to
Getting
be
into
kind of
trouble?
I've got my own crew I'm bringing with me too, and I think we're gonna be following behind her the whole way. But we'll definitely me and Noah have always been close, so we'll definitely have a lot of fun.
Does the fam come with you on tour, or do you?
No,
No.
not yet. If I had a big tour bus, I would definitely bring the fam. But for now, I think we're taking all flights, so it would be difficult. Hotel rooms and Southwest flights.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen how your son's what, like 4?
4.
4? Yeah. Have you seen any glint of musical or artistic inclination yet, or is it?
I have in some ways, but in a lot of ways, I am not looking because I want him to do his own thing, and I think I'll if I see him going towards something, I will push him towards it, and if he is walking away from something, I'm not going to redirect him back to it. So, kind of similar to my parents' philosophy. If he, wants to, go to college, be a doctor, lawyer, be a chef or something, whatever he wants to do. But if he's 16 and asks, Dad, can I be your engineer and I'll learn how to be a producer like you, I'll say sure.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for talking to us, Braison.
Dude, it was good talking to you guys.